All right, every week here, every Wednesday, we link up with Jacques Doucet from WAFB, one of our favorites, one of our friends from our partners over at WAFB. Of course, you can catch him on sports, WAFB Sports. You can get that on the app. Download the app. You can check out the Jordy Culotta show there as well. Tigers heading over to College Station this weekend. LSU women's basketball get the 3 seed. They open up conference or NCAA play here in Baton Rouge. And LSU baseball, as we said, traveling over to Texas A&M. We'll start there. Jacques is here this morning. Jacques, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, everyone. As Travis Tritt sings, great day to be alive.
Oh, yes.
Beautiful day in Baton Rouge today. Sunny. I thought I was done with the long sleeves for the year, but we got a little snap.
A little chill. They say they're expecting some cold weather for St. Patrick's Day as well.
I saw that. It was chilly last night at the box, and the wind was kind of gusting in a little bit, but that didn't stop Tommy White and Gavin Dugas from poking them over the fence. So,
JD, what's going on right now with Red Rock and Blue before we get into some sports?
We're still rounding up sponsors. If you're out there and you want to put your company's name on Red Rock and Blue, you got till May the 1st. So I'm easy to find out there. Go to redrockandblue.com. All my contact information is there. Vertical Horizon, multi-platinum artist, will be headlining a big show at the Varsity on August the 19th. Tickets are on sale for that. We've got a big catering reunion show that my friend Ben Cassio put together on July the 8th, and then we're going to have a country show on July 22nd, I believe it is, at the Varsity with Chase Tyler and some other guys. So we have 3 concerts during the summer that will benefit Red Rock and Blue. Our softball tournament will be July 28th through the 30th at Oak Villa, and we're about to start registration for that. So that's where we are with Red Rock and Blue at the moment. And we give all our money to local Louisiana military charities like Blue Star Moms of Louisiana, Wounded War Heroes, not the Wounded Warrior Project. That's something different. And it's a great thing we do, and we enjoy it, and we have fun during the summer, so be a part.
There's a lot to get to with Jacques, and let's start with spring football, JD. We've heard from Brian Kelly now a couple of times, and most recently since his team has practiced. What did you make of some of Kelly's comments and some of the things that you may have seen on opening day of spring?
Well, I think the number one thing we walked away from his press conference was that John Emery's in limbo again, and he's got to take care of his academics or he's not going to be part of this team moving forward. I thought that this year is a lot less crisis management and a lot less trying to teach them how to practice. Kelly even joked about last year, hey, you don't take your helmet off during practice. You don't throw your helmet during practice. Get control of your emotions. You don't take a knee during practice. And so I think, he was inheriting a whole different situation last year. Now he's building on what they did in year one, winning the SEC West and winning a bowl game convincingly and winning 10 games, and now trying to take the next step. The scenario around this team will be completely different than a year ago in which they were picked to win 6 games. Now a lot of picks have them in the top 10 nationally, winning the SEC West, so now they're the hunted and not the hunter. But that shouldn't change the way they approach things. And certainly, I was thinking about it too, Jordy, a year ago. I mean, Jaden Daniels transferred in. We kind of knew a little bit about him, that he was the quarterback at Arizona State, but he was definitely not the starter when he came in at spring. Miles Brennan actually was the veteran presence a year ago and a guy a lot of people thought could have started, but obviously he was nowhere near starting. And so now this is kind of Jaden Daniels' team now to an extent in terms of he's the returning starter. How much ownership does he take in the team leadership? And then obviously Garrett Nussmeier is right there behind him, eager to play as well. So, a year ago we were going out there as TV people trying to get shots of everybody because we didn't have shots of anybody because the staff was completely new. A lot of the players were completely new, and a lot of players are new again, but the staff is pretty much the same except for the special teams coordinator. And Coach Polian was out there prominently on day one talking to Coach Kelly, is now the new GM of the team, so to speak. So we were only out there for 20 minutes, and then that's the only practice we saw. They're on spring break, and then we go out there, I think, on Tuesday.
Yeah. You mentioned the quarterbacks, obviously, and Daniels and Nussmeier and how they're divvying up the reps. You anticipate them to keep all these guys next year? I mean, you don't anticipate anybody leaving here this year, right?
Well, it's funny. Sometimes on my Facebook comments, I read stuff like, they ran off Walker Howard. It's like I'm sure they begged Walker Howard to stay. Right. There's no running off of Walker Howard. So I would hope now that they've kind of got it narrowed down to, I say 2. I mean, Ricky Collins is out there. That's a new visual that he's already practicing with the team after playing fall ball, playing high school football in the fall. And so, I mean, I would think they would do everything in their power to keep those 2 guys, Nuss and Jaden. Jaden's not going anywhere. So I guess keep Nuss on the roster. Yeah. And I watched a one-on-one Garland Gillen did with Brian Kelly, and he talked about, hey, it doesn't matter how we word it, open competition, not open competition, whatever. We need to do a better job of getting, Nuss some snaps with the first teamers, which I'm sure they'll do. And he also talked about Jaden, that Jaden still needs to do a better job of getting the ball down the field to the wide receivers and pushing the ball down the field. So, but he also said Jaden made great strides from the beginning of the year to the end in terms of him playing the quarterback position. So, and I've told you before, I think it's funny that a lot of times for years and years we talked about LSU needs a dual threat quarterback to beat Alabama, and Burrow finally brought that element. And then last year, Jaden obviously brought that element in that drive late in the game, in which he ran for like 35 yards on a 3rd and 10 or something, and then the first play of overtime he runs in the end zone. So Jaden Daniels brings the run aspect to it, but obviously needs to push the ball a little bit more here and there.
LSU basketball season comes to an end in Nashville.
It did,
and then a day later, Will Wade gets hired down at McNeese. What have you made of the basketball news the last week?
Yeah, excited to see Will Wade back in college basketball. I think Lake Charles is an interesting place. You're close to Houston, where I'm sure he could recruit a lot of talent. You got the casinos there that have been kind of blossoming, and you've got some money in Lake Charles. I think it's maybe television market 170, if I'm not mistaken. I think Lafayette's around 120, and Baton Rouge is around 90. And so I think they've got a brand new arena, right? And I'm sure he'll get players. And I think I heard him say they haven't had I think I was listening to your interview with him. He said they hadn't had a winning season at McNeese since 2010, 2011. Yeah. That kind of shocked me.
Me too.
That they hadn't finished over 500 in that long.
That's a long time.
That's a long time. I mean, not to stack up your non-conference with cupcakes of some kind that you can finish over 500.
Let's just get to the number.
So, I mean, Joe Dumars, that's going back to what, the early 80s?
Yeah, maybe late
70s.
Yeah.
So, I'm looking forward. Or is McNeese going to play the Cajuns in an arena, not a gym? Okay,
right. I know that's the first thing I thought of is him and Bob Marlin.
I think that NIT game was it 6 years ago or something? Mm-hmm. I always tell the interns, I'm like, that was a case where I left that press conference and I had this gold-minded stuff and I had about 30 minutes to get that thing edited and on the news that night. And this is an example of being on the deadline, and I got to turn this thing because I think some people around the country watched that. They called it press conference porn when they saw it. Like all the national and college bet, they're like, man, the NIT typically is boring and dull. Right. Like these two guys just teed off in this press conference. And we still talk about it, You've been under a rock, the whole Will Wade postgame. And so many fans told me, they said, I loved Will Wade to begin with, but when he went off on the Cajuns in that press conference, he endeared me for life.
It was you could feel it being in that room watching it like this is going to be something that people talk about forever, for a long time.
And a great guy named Jared Joseph, who interned at Channel 9 and then worked at WVLA, When Will Wade said, "You've been under a rock," at that exact moment, Jared tripped in the back, like he tripped over a tripod or something. You hear like this, boom, like in the back of the room, right when Will Wade said, "You've been under a rock," boom. So it was like one of these,
perfect time
comedy
moments.
Timed up, things. But that was one of those press conferences I'll never forget for sure. But anyway, I don't know what Coach McMahon's going to do with the roster. I think a lot of people are waiting, and a year from now, it's got to improve, right? It's got to get better. I think that Coach McMahon gets at least 3 years, right, to coach and figure it out. But and still, we're waiting on the NCAA to decide what the heck's going on. Can we please close the book on this, please?
Have you seen? They've ruled on this Miami case. The Miami girls basketball team, they have had some recruiting violations.
The
Cavender twins is what their names is, and I believe Mike Ruiz is like a huge Miami booster, and he had him in town and brought him out to eat, and they tweeted a picture out, and it was illegal, and they had the evidence, and they were able to turn it around, and they've made the ruling, and they know what's going on. I'm telling you, the NCAA wants to react. They want to be out there. They want to show that they can do this. So if they have the information and have the evidence and have all of the stuff that they need to decide, that they would say something. The longer this goes on, the more this gets extended out, the more evident it clearly is that they don't have anything to say. If they had something to say, they would want to scream off of a podium, this is what we've got, this is when he did it, this is how we've known Will Wade and LSU basketball was the devil that we've been telling you that they have been for the last 5 years. I mean,
you would agree that McNeese would not have hired him if they didn't have a good grip on what was going to happen.
No way.
So they've already suspended him for 5 games. They're going to eat their you-know-what sandwich and then move on from it.
I would even go as far as to say that LSU would self-sanction penalties if they had an idea that things were coming. Like, they haven't taken any scholarships away.
Right.
They did not ban themselves from any postseason play. You can insert the jokes wherever you would like, but they're still playing under. They're not regulated.
Right.
They're playing under the same rules that everybody else is. So, even the LSU administration is saying out loud, like, hey, they're not going to do anything, because if they were, we would get out in front of it and we would sanction ourselves. We would take away a couple of scholarships to say, kind of like McNeese is doing.
Yeah.
Right? Like McNeese is like being proactive and saying, look, if you do come forward and say that he's penalized, well, we've already sat him 5 games. We kept him off the road the entire summer. He didn't recruit until after July 31st. We have taken steps to say, and if they still come down and hit the hammer, if you're McNeese, you're saying, well, hell, we still won. We sold tickets.
Right.
We got really good recognition. We finally finished over 500. I'm sure there's going to be things that you can still celebrate even if things are out there. But I'm telling you, if something was out there, they would love to tell you about it, because they don't like the fact that we're out here making fun of them. That everybody out there is making fun of them. Like, what could it be? Well, there's nothing to say because there's nothing there.
Well, it's gone on long enough. We just sat through the season from hell. Can you please step to the plate? It's been 4 years since Will Wade was suspended by Joe Oliva and company for 40 days or whatever it was.
Wow.
We were at LeBear's that day and the news hit. And so other schools are going to negatively recruit against LSU, right? They're going to say stuff like, well, even if they're going to say, well, do you want to go to a place where they're not even sure you can go to the NCAA tournament and what? Right. So it seems like in the press box yesterday, I was talking to Brian Lazar about this, and it was like he kind of said he thinks that they're going to lose a scholarship or 2, and that's going to be it. They're not going to have any post-game sanctions or whatever, or postseason sanctions, excuse me. So let's, get off your butt and do it, announce it. So, Matt McMahon, to be fair to him, he needs this out of the way. He had nothing to do with any of that stuff. So, when is his true starting line, and move forward? So.
I agree, 100%. Jacques Doucet joining us. You can follow him on Twitter at Jacques Doucet. All right, LSU baseball hits the road to go visit Texas A&M this weekend, and this will be a real test here, it feels like, for this number 1 team. Doug Thompson was just here. We've talked to a couple of people about this squad. There's only so much you can say of how good they've been, right? I think Doug had a stat where they've outscored their opponent like 142-10.
I've never seen an LSU baseball team dismantle a non-conference schedule like this one has. Mm-hmm. Now, has the non-conference schedule been a bit soft? Yes. Mm-hmm. They didn't play a 3-game series against Long Beach State or whatever. But they run rule like 6 of the last 7 entering last night, and if last night would have had a run rule, they would have run ruled UNO as well. And then there were some other games in which they beat Sam Houston State 16-4 when there was no run rule and whatnot. Yeah. Texas A&M last year was last year, but last year Texas A&M came to the box, won 2 out of 3, and went to the College World Series. If you want to be objective, maybe you can say, okay, who are the best 2 teams LSU has played so far? Iowa and Texas. LSU had the worst game of the season against Iowa. They got beat badly. And then against Texas on the road, it was a 0-0 game going to the 9th before Gavin Dugas hit the 3-run homer. So Is LSU going to go to College Station and score 16 runs on Friday? Probably not. Could they? Maybe. I don't know. But if you go in there and you get 2 out of 3, that's the goal. Mm-hmm. And if you're an LSU season ticket holder, you talk about, getting the Rolling Stones and the Who right out of the bat, coming to town. You got Arkansas for a 3-game series coming in, and then you got Tennessee coming to town. And I think the Tennessee series coming up is the most highly anticipated series LSU's played in a long, long time. I think they're going to break attendance records with that one.
It'll be the best atmosphere the new box has seen. I say new box, but I mean like this version of the box has seen. I mean,
yeah,
Oklahoma, Jonathan Gray versus Aaron Nola type stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Now the one thing I keep forgetting and keep being reminded of is it starts on a Thursday.
Yeah.
So it's a Thursday, Friday, Saturday series, but still. I think that Coach Johnson, from what I've heard, he wants to break some attendance records with that. And the whole Tony Vitello, as polarizing as he is and the way his team plays the game and as polarizing as they are, you're going to have a football element during that series, I'm sure, but not to look too far ahead. But those are the kind of things right off the bat that you get into the SEC play with. And, Tommy White has hit, 6 home runs in his last 8 games or something like that. He struggled with that shoulder injury. It was the Nick Saban sky is falling catastrophe syndrome when he got hurt in that first game. Oh no, this is another Mason Smith, hurt his knee on the first drive. He's out for the year. And he struggled to get his timing back in round rock and whatnot. Now the onslaught's underway. Yeah. Jared Jones needs to cut down his strikeouts, but, I mean, that guy, the way he hits the baseball, and then you forget about Gavin Dugas, and then he puts one in the stands last night. And the pitching, Paul Skeens, my goodness, striking out 2 batters every inning he pitches. He's striking out 2 out of 3 guys, basically, every time he gets up there. And then Thatcher Hurd has worked out his problems. I mean, Jay's managing a juggernaut, and are they going to lose some games in the SEC? Yeah. I mean, what's the best SEC record you can hope for? 23-7? I mean, can they go 25-5? I don't know. But, postseason, it's all about winning 3 games in a regional, 2 games in a super. Is anybody going to stop this team in the postseason? We'll find out. Yeah. Long season ahead, but right now you think no.
Right. No, they're so good. Yeah. I mean, they're incredible.
Wes Johnson is a shutout. You score 16 runs last night. You don't think about the pitching end of things, but I think they've shut out 6 or 7 opponents so far. Mm-hmm. And Garrett Edwards, he's another great story. Yeah. Guy from Pitkin, Louisiana. Yeah. The way he's pitching. So Christian Little out of the pen. They're stacked.
It's incredible to watch. All right, last one. Derek Carr officially introduced as a New Orleans Saint.
It's kind of the first shot of adrenaline and excitement I've gotten with the Saints in a while. I watched the press conference, most of it. I was very, he comes across as a great guy, great husband, great dad, Christian. He said I won't be throwing Bibles at people, but he's great in the community as well. And this is the first time they've really signed a big time, quarterback prospect since they signed Drew back in 2006. So. He's your fearless leader now. You're losing a lot of other guys off the Saints roster that are going to the Falcons and the Panthers, looks like. But give me 3 wide receivers, Jordy. Give me 3 guys who are going to show up for work every day. Yeah. Michael Thomas, are you ready? Can we go? I mean, are you healthy? And then, Olave is a great young talent. And, a lot of speculation about Kamara. Has the ship sailed? I mean, is it time to move on from him? That's been something that's been discussed. I don't know. Who's your running back? Who are you going to hand the ball to? So, yeah, I mean, I was impressed with it. Looking forward to, getting out there in April and whatever it is when they do the OTAs and seeing him wearing the Saints jersey. Exciting time, Jordy. And then, Kim and the girls hosting the NCAA tournament this weekend. We'll see how that goes. So, Haley Bryant gets 3 perfect 10s in a meet on Friday. That was pretty amazing. So, a lot of exciting things. I didn't even mention Dylan Cruz. Look up at the scoreboard. Like, he's batting .519. Wow.
Isn't that crazy? Isn't that nuts? I mean, really, and I think Doug said it best, anybody outside of Dylan Cruz, Trey Morgan, Tommy Tanks right now, your job's up every day. You know what I mean? Like, you could, next man up. I mean, like Josh Pearson last night. I mean, you almost kind of forgot about him. I mean, he steps in last night. And
we'll talk about good problems to have. Jay hates the run rule, right? And when you run rule somebody at home, you're losing 2.5 innings of baseball to get some other guys some at-bats, to get some other guys on the mound. And so those 2.5 innings times 6 or whatever, if you lose 15, 16, 17, 20 innings of baseball because you're beating the pants off the other guy, and the run rule is decided by the visitor. Jay is never going to say, yeah, I want a run rule tonight. So Blake Dean, God bless him, last night, I guess said, I don't want one. Maybe Jay told him as a former Tiger, hey, don't do it. But yeah, there's just a lot of amazing things. What would you say is more unlikely to happen? Trey Morgan hitting for the cycle in order, or Haley Bryant getting 3 perfect 10s in a meet? I was thinking about that. Both cases in which you say, hey, if I try to do this today, there's no way I can do this if I think about doing this. But so
both impossible when you just kind of say out loud of, I'm going to accomplish this. And both of them have done it within the first month of competition, right? Jacques, it's good to see you. When are you back on the desk?
Tomorrow, or nice. I'm doing something tomorrow. I'll be at tomorrow. All 4 teams in the women's NCAA tournament here in Baton Rouge will practice and do press conferences. So we'll have that tomorrow for you. JD,
live tomorrow on the desk. You can follow him on Twitter at Jacques Doucet and listen to him every Wednesday right here on the Jordy Culotta Show. We'll be back. We'll close it out next year when we come back here on the show, driven and powered by Go Chevrolet.